Hey guys, what's going on and welcome back to the workout series. Today we got a lot of fun things for you. We're starting off with mobility. Later on we got some deadlifts. We're gonna attempt to single leg deadlift, which it's more of an attempt. It's just really getting down the form. And then we got some wide stance good mornings. But right now we're starting off with the mobility, and as you can see, I'm stepping on a golf ball. And first you might think, okay Tyler, why are you showing me your feet and why are you stepping on a golf ball? And I'll tell you this right now. If you want a firm grounding for any of your explosive or athletic lifts, your best bet is to start mobilizing your chain from the ground up. And you might think, oh yeah, well, ankles and calves, right? Well, right, but essentially what you want to do is you want to start even lower than that. You want to start at the bottom of your foot because you want to make sure your foot is able to be mobile. You want to make sure it's absorbent to the energy you're pushing through it. And you want to make sure you have a nice firm grounding on the floor, because if you don't have a firm grounding with stable, then you're going to have a loss of power and a loss of stabilization, which will put you at a pretty big disadvantage. So we're just pretty much rolling out the bottom layer of the foot, especially in the arch, and trying to get out all the tension that could be built up in there so we have a nice elastic foot. Now, from there, we're going to move upward on the chain, and we're going to start rolling out the ankle, or not the ankle, but the calf. And essentially, I'm using a rumble roller. You can use a rumble roller, a foam roller, whatever you want to use. I prefer to use this because it's really intense and it gets the knots out pretty damn well, pretty damn quick too. What I'm also making sure is, because I've had an injury in my ankle, my left ankle 2 years ago, I told you guys that about that. I want to make sure that my ankle has no freaking problems with flexion, with extension, and I want to make sure my calves don't over dominate anything so that they're nice, loose, and limber and ready to go. From there, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be tacking down, flossing out the hamstrings with the Supernova ball that I got from Rogue. It's a great ball, by the way. If you want to go check it out, I highly recommend it. It's a Supernova ball. But I'm just really getting rid of all the tension in my hamstrings now to make sure that they're nice and loose, they're nice and ready to get fired up, and they're nice and open with blood. That's the biggest important thing for this portion right here. I want to open my hamstrings up so I can get a nice, good contraction, especially when I'm deadlifting. But that's also because I had some dysfunction with my hamstrings. They were taking a little bit over for my glutes, so this also helps to give my glutes more power so I can get more hip drive in the motion, which ultimately will help you exponentially. Next, from there, I just want to decompress the entire spine, so I'm using the rumble roller yet again, and I'm just getting the thoracic area done. I'm just really focusing on getting a pretty good lean over the roller. I'm really trying to decompress all the spinal pressure I might have and try to open everything up so I can get a nice firm tightness in my lats when I'm pulling with the deadlift. Because if you don't have stability through your back and your core, guys, your deadlift's gonna fall down pretty tremendously, and you might put yourself at risk for hurting yourself. So that's something to always look forward to. Next up, we're gonna be stretching out the hamstrings, right? So I wanna make sure they're nice and lengthened so that I get a lot of hip hinging going on. And if you don't know what hip hinging is, it's just really pelvic rotation. So I wanna make sure that my pelvis can fully rotate one way to the other so that I get full hip drive rather than knee drive or any other that kind of fun stuff. Because hip drive is gonna be your most powerful source, especially when deadlifting, squatting, whatever you're gonna be doing with lower body. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm essentially locking out my knees so I can fully stretch out my calves and my hamstrings, and I'm just falling down. And normally I wouldn't condone rounding the back out, but for this one really helps with putting extra weight forward as long as you're doing this, so you can get a deeper stretch and rotate the pelvis even further so that way you get the best stretch out of this, okay? Next up, from there, what we're going to be doing is we're just going to open up the chest. So that's going to be one thing that's going to also prohibit any motion of the lats or the rhomboids or anything like that for making stability. And especially with most guys going into the gym, chest seems to be an over-dominant muscle because of bench day. So you want to make sure your pecs are nice and stretched out so that way your shoulders and your shoulder blades can retract the right ways, so that way you have the most stability without having to arch through the lower back. So that's what we're doing here, nothing crazy. After that, we're going to be doing some activation exercise and some other stretching. So right here, as you can see, I am getting myself into a complete hyperextension of my lower back. I'm tightening my lats and I'm really, really pushing my butt up into the air so that I have one complete extreme of spinal extension. Now, from this point, what you see I'm doing is I'm squeezing the glutes to control everything segment by segment. So I'm letting out the back only in segments. I went from the lumbar, now I'm heading up to the thoracic, and I'm pushing the cervical down and in, squeezing the abs, squeezing the glutes, and as you can see, I'm squeezing like hell and I'm shaking. So this is gonna be something that's pretty difficult for you guys. This would be called the cat-cow. But it's pretty intensive if you use it the right way. So you want to really make sure you get everything as tight as it can be. And as you can see, I'm really focusing on overextending everything. And then right here, going right back at it, squeezing the glutes to control the lumbar area as hard as I can. The whole time the glutes are driving this, getting that pelvic rotation I was talking about before, opening the thoracic, tightening the abs in, and pushing the cervical down to make that rounded out back. And then I'm going to come back down by pinching the rhomboids, pinching the lats, getting the lower back to hyperextend, and then coming right back to here. After this, I did a couple dynamic exercises just to get some more explosive movements going on, but I didn't record those for you guys. So here we are. As you can see, my deadlifts are a lot more explosive than they used to be. This is only 135, so I know you're going to say, oh, well, it's just 135, so it's probably just going to fly up pretty easy. But you're going to see right here, getting a lot quicker. I want to say it's just about a fourth of the time that I used to take to pull it all the way up off the ground. So I'm really happy with all of that. And thanks to Derek, by the way, from Catalyst Health and Fitness. He's been helping me out a tremendous amount, really restructuring my movement patterns so that I can get explosively fast lifts. Now we got the second warm-up set of the deadlift. I'm just gonna do a 3-rep set. We're just doing 225, trying to really focus and emphasize on lat tightness and glute drive. And as you can see, it's pretty flawless, I'm not gonna lie. I'm getting a lot better with it, especially since I've opened up my calves and my hamstrings. So it really helps a lot, guys, to keep that mobility going. And especially after all that deep mobility, as you see, I'm doing a lot of warm-up sets because I want to make sure after all that deep stretching that my body is neurologically ready for everything I'm going to put it under. So I just did about 3 warm-up sets with deadlifts. This is the 3rd one. And I'm making sure everything's nice and tight and nice and strong before I go into anything that would really tax me out, that could potentially hurt me. So it's really what we're doing here. Next up, we're going to put some chalk on there. And let me think, right there is just about 275 plus the 10. So that's about 285. We're gonna go for 1 rep and we're gonna work our way up the chain. We're not trying to get a full 1 rep max. What we're really worrying about is trying to keep a good force driven through the feet, pushing through, getting the hips to really hinge through and explosively get it to the top of the movement. So we're not focused on super heavy right now. We're really focused on the explosive portion. As you know, I've pulled the 405 before and that wasn't too bad, but I really want to make sure that everything's explosive so that when I do go up for like a 1 rep max again, that it's a good attempt. I get a nice clean rep. I don't fault on anything. My lats are tight. Everything's in the way it should be. So here we are at 310 now. We're working our way back up. Gonna get that 1 rep. Let's see how it goes. I had a little delay at the beginning, but as you can see, I pulled through with it as soon as I get off the ground. And that's always been my weakness, is pulling off the ground. So that's what we've been really working on. So look at that. Wow. I'm actually doing a lot better than I thought I was doing, guys. So that's pretty impressive for me. I'm really glad because before, my left glute really didn't have any tension to be pushing through with. So, all right. So before I go any further with talking, that right there, as you can see, and with this one as well, you'll notice I shift my weight forward, and that's why I say attempt 1, attempt 2. I shift my weight forward, so I lost a lot of my hamstring and glute tension right off the bat. But this 3rd attempt right here, you'll see I pull back a lot easier, a lot harder, and I get more of an explosive response through my hips, which is exactly what we wanted to do. But here comes the fun part. All right, so we're gonna attempt to do the single leg deadlift. And guys, I wanna tell you, this is taxing, both mentally, physically, and just in every way possible. I could not believe how difficult pulling 135 off the ground was, especially when you really think, oh wow, I could deadlift like 400 pounds. And here I am pulling 135 off the ground, and it's extremely difficult. And as you can see, because I have never tried this before, and because we're really reworking my chain, you'll notice I'm doing a lot of arching with my back. It's really ugly, I'll be honest with you guys. I got a lot of work to do with this, but it's really ugly. So what I'm really focusing on doing here is I'm trying to get some dynamic control on both legs so that I have an individual neurological response on my right and on my left. Especially with my left, you're gonna notice when we get to those clips my left is really weak, and the mobility in it is better, but my body just doesn't want to respond the way that my right leg can respond. So essentially you'll notice that my right leg is exploding pretty well. However, I am pretty shaky and I'm falling around a lot. So the one thing I want to say about these single leg deadlifts is that it's really taxing on the lats especially, and that's the one thing I was losing a lot of tension on, because I couldn't seem to get my lats tight, drop my hips down, and stay stable on that one foot. It was extremely difficult. It was something that really, I had never felt this kind of instability before, so I'm glad that Derek was putting me through this. And I think this is where we get to the fun side, the left side. So this is the side I broke the leg on, and you're gonna see a lot of dysfunction on this side, I'll be honest with you guys. As you can see, not so balanced, falling over a little bit. Doesn't look like I know what I'm doing here. I do know what I'm trying to do, but getting my body to respond the way I need it to respond was the most difficult part. And I'll be honest with you guys, the left side, as you can see, he's commenting on the forum right here, and he's had to comment on it a lot. The left side for me took about twice the amount of time as the right side to get down those 5 reps that I was trying to get down. And I just couldn't believe how difficult it was to get my left side to independently sink the hips down and keep the lower back from arching, right? I had no hip drive whatsoever when we started it, but as we get towards the end, you're gonna actually see a pretty big difference in the way we were moving. He kind of had to, as you see, I reset the camera and everything like that, but he was just exemplifying for me how to go through it so that way I don't lose the power through my left glute. And that's the big problem, guys. You don't realize how much glute drive you're losing until you try something like this, where it independently puts stress on one side than the other, because you might have a strong side just naturally being right-handed or left-handed, and you'll never know until you try something like this. But I would really honestly recommend doing a lighter weight. It was really difficult to keep my shit together with 135, and we probably could have been more conservative, but just for the fact of really training the body under high loads, we kept it at 135. As you see, my right leg was bugging out over there, and I almost fall over. So single leg deadlifts are something that obviously I've never tried before, something that I want to improve upon, and that's just something that Derek and I are going to work on so that we can get my independent legs to be a little bit better with hip drive, so that way, I think this was one of my good attempts. Nope, never mind, just kidding. We're trying to get my each independent leg and each independent hip to push as much pressure as the other, so that way when we go into my double, it's a lot better. Let's see what we get here. And that was going to be my best pull, and I messed up. I just couldn't follow through with it. My glutes gave out and I dropped. So there's the second attempt right there. I caught myself. I was a little bit unstable, but it was a lot better than the beginning if you look back at the beginning. And here's my best one if I'm correct. This is my last one right here. I'm gonna drive. Perfect. And that's something more that we were looking for right there. And he just told me to look at the camera because he's like, dude, you gotta do something more like that. So last but not least, we just did 2 sets of the 8 reps with the wide stance good mornings. All we're really trying to do is emphasize on core stability, lower back stability, and hip drive, as you can tell has been the emphasis of this deadlift day. So we're getting the wide stance almost more like a sumo, but not quite. It's kind of between mid stance and sumo. We're getting an excessive lean, and the way he described this to me was saying you want to pretty much replicate the worst squat you could potentially do, but with the best hip drive you could possibly produce. And so that's what we really did with the wide stance good mornings. We really emphasized on getting that forward lean so it looks like a terrible squat. However, all we're doing is a good morning with a wide stance so that we can get a lot more hip control, a lot more core stability, and obviously back tension as well. So that's really what we're going to final up with, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you guys gained a little bit of knowledge throughout the video as well. That's really the main emphasis of this channel, is to educate you guys on the workouts we do. I know you guys will see, and especially if you guys are new into the gym, you'll see people doing these crazy workouts, and you might not understand why they're doing it. You might think they're just doing it to impress people or whatnot, but these are the kinds of technical things that go into a workout that you got to really consider when you structure one as well. So today's emphasis was the deadlift, so we focused a lot on hip drive, whether it was independent or whether it was with the good mornings. So like I said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Enjoy the rest of it, and as always, take it easy.